We
Because,
never find that kind of inflexibility in our schools, I just want to say.
because of the dynamic nature of innovation and science and the pace it's going at, hopefully, and the fact that there'll be great material, hopefully it'll be more typical to say, no, I want to go online and watch a 4 or 5 hour course about what is renewable energy and why is it hard to make it expensive, and is there any rationality to people who disagree with this as a big path. We do certainly, we need for the complex issues society faces that these tools help us get more informed.
Okay, we are ready to go with questions. If you could raise the paddle, I'm going to call on paddle 3. If you have someone, please come to the microphone and speak.
Good morning. As you look forward into the future and your vision for 10 years from now for technology in schools, what are the implications for the bandwidth and infrastructure that schools are going to need in order to support all this?
Yeah, the bandwidth needs will be quite significant because if you imagine, say you're an institution with 500 students, and if at any one time, 20% of those students are on watching video type bandwidth, then you're going to need, several hundred megabytes of speed coming into the school. The good news on that is that of all your technology expenditures, that should end up being a very small part of it. Now, some of you are, I should add a footnote here, which is a pretty important footnote. The answer I just gave really is about those of you in urban areas. As you move out to more and more rural locations, take an extreme like some of the Indian reservations in the United States, the availability of bandwidth and the cost of bandwidth is very high. And so in that case, it may end up being a meaningful part of your technology budget that you have to afford that connectivity. As you get closer in, it's going to be well under 10% of the overall budget would be for the connectivity piece.
Paddle 2.
Hi. How do you suggest moving forward that you get, I don't think it's a problem to get students on board with all of this change, but parents and teachers who are so used to one way and so familiar and having, in a general sense, success with this one way of doing things, how do you suggest getting people on board who might be resistant?
Yeah, I think getting people on board is a big challenge because there are so many constituencies, and let me just take parents. I'm not trying to suggest they're a particularly backwards constituency, but they're just one of many. They, they know how they were taught the subject, and they know that they were totally focused on their homework and they weren't doing multiple conversations while things were going on. Even setting policies for kids. Should you let kids Skype during their homework? Well, how do you know what they're doing? Are they really talking about the subject? It's a big challenge for parents because they don't have any experience with this, and it will feel very unfamiliar to them. And particularly if you get parents who are kind of conservative about hey, it's not broken, let's leave alone. You get some teachers who feel less comfortable about these things. And then you'll hear about somebody who went too far and tried something out and it didn't work well. This is going to be sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. The idea that you start socializing the idea that, hey, technology is important over a 10-year period, and you gather parents together and start to talk about it. We're going to require that everyone have a computer. Here's how we're going to make that work. Do you tell people 2 years in advance about that? Do you have a really good plan for the kids who it's not that affordable? Do you let some teachers, talk about how they think that there could be some negatives? Do you let the kids type on them during class or not? Do you block certain websites or not? You'll be pulled into quite a bit of challenge. So I think my biggest answer is A, plan ahead, B, pick the teachers who are particularly open-minded and give them full rein as soon as possible because it's their success, and they'll see that the kids are flocking to this new approach, and teachers, parents will realize, hey, at the end of the day, the students are the ones who know what kind of learning works for them. And if you can't have them enthused and embrace this stuff, if you literally stick to the chalkboard, the contrast for that student between what's happening at home, when they're playing the Kinect and being online and simulating things versus the in-school experience, it's going to make the learning part just seem so dull. So as many experiments as possible and planning out in advance and mapping through the different constituencies, and assume they're going to be tougher on you on this than you might expect.
Bill, just as a quick follow-up, do you find both at the foundation and in your work at Microsoft that people are all early adopters, or do you find the same kinds of resistances that we find in independent schools?
There's a lot of resistance to change. Education's been done pretty much the same way for a long, long time. There are always a group, and it tends to be younger teachers, not entirely, but somewhat, who really do want to use this stuff. They care a lot about it. And so if you look at the traffic on something like khanacademy.org, which amongst all those, that's one everybody should play around with just to get a sense of what's there, even if you're not going to incorporate it wholesale. You need to pick who your early adopters are, but they will be at most 20% of your population. There'll be a 60% that's kind of open-minded. They've heard a few negative things. They want you to take those negatives head on and really address them. And then there may be 20% who simply aren't ever going to make that transition. And over the next 10 years, are they the right people to be doing this work or not? It's hard to say.
I need the paddles up out there. Paddle 1 over here, please.
What can we do as educators to bring about a shift in the publishing paradigm from paper to digital sooner than later?
Well, a lot of the paper in education is the textbook and the homework. And it'd be interesting, I've never seen somebody actually try and go out and do a metric. There are a lot of classes taught without a paper textbook. And my exposure is anecdotal enough. I'd love to see a statistic about that. I'd say at Lakeside there's quite a few who they've gone away from the paper textbook. Another project I have is a new kind of high school course called Big History, and that's being created entirely without a paper textbook, where we just have online text and really very cool videos and timelines and things. So it's been crafted that way from the beginning. CK12 you saw is a website that has open textbooks, free textbooks that are really quite good, and they'll have Common Core and all the different things people might want. There the big leap of faith though is that your students have the device, and so you have to come up with something that makes sure that device availability is very, very good. And the devices break and everything, you've got to get used to that. So getting rid of the textbook and having the homework handed in electronic, we are at a phase where that should happen. Having the class schedule and the notification of when things are going to happen, expecting parents to go up online to see those things.